In a shocking podcast confession, Jungkook opens up about his first kiss, but the identity of the person leaves fans speechless and sets off a storm of secrets. You still remember it, don't you? The voice was low, velvety, and so close to the mic that it made the studio speakers crackle. Jungkook froze. The red on-air sign buzzed faintly above his head. The studio was dim, intimate, cast in shadows except for the soft golden light from the desk lamp. He sat motionless, his fingers clenched tightly around his tumbler of iced Americano. His gaze darted sideways toward the producer's booth, but the glass was too dark to see past the glare. No one was supposed to know. You shouldn't be here, he said quietly, trying to keep his voice steady, trying not to betray the tight knot forming in his chest. But I am, the voice replied, smiling through the sound waves. And I remember everything, Kook. Jungkook's breath hitched. The name, no one called him that. Not in years. Not since then. The podcast had started like any other. Soft jazz intro, banter with the co-host, fan questions pulled from live chat. It was supposed to be lighthearted, fun. He'd even joked about embarrassing high school crushes and awkward fan encounters. Then the anonymous call came in, masked with a digital filter yet eerily familiar. Smooth and slow, each word like a scalpel slicing through years of silence. Jungkook's memories fought to stay buried, but the voice dragged them out, one by one. The old library at night, the broken umbrella, the scent of rain on her sweater, the dare, and then the kiss. He was 17. She was the transfer student with quiet eyes and a habit of disappearing into the art room. Everyone thought she was strange. He thought she was magnetic. But she wasn't supposed to be real anymore. She'd vanished, without a trace. No phone, no social media, not even graduation photos. For years, he believed she was a dream, or a secret the world refused to remember. And now she was back. Not in person. Not yet. Just a voice, crackling through his podcast, threading itself into millions of listeners' ears. You told me you'd never forget, she said now. You lied. The studio door creaked open. Cold air slithered in. Jungkook stood up, his chair scraping backward, his pulse hammering in his throat. But no one entered. Just the hiss of the AC. The co-host, Jiwoo, was staring at him. Pale. Silent. She'd removed her headphones. What the hell was that? She whispered. He couldn't answer. He was already spiraling back, years collapsing like dominoes. The kiss. The fight. The accident. The police reports that never made sense. The painting that showed up in his mailbox last week. Unsigned, but unmistakable. It was her. She wasn't just back. She was playing a game. And she had just made her first move on air, in front of millions. The fan comments exploded. Who is this caller? Did Jungkook just admit to something? OMG, this sounds like a thriller. Is this staged? Is it real? Who was his first kiss? Jungkook shut off the mic. The studio went silent. He leaned forward, resting his elbows on the table, eyes closed. He knew she wouldn't stop there, because he hadn't just kissed her. He had betrayed her. And now, in front of the whole world, she was peeling back the layers, starting with the most innocent thing, his first kiss, and ending, perhaps, with the truth he'd buried in the basement of his soul. The truth that might ruin him. You're shaking, Jungkook. Jiwoo's voice cut through the heavy silence like glass across skin. Her hand hovered near his arm, not quite touching, unsure of her place in the unraveling world she was now forced into. He didn't look at her. He couldn't. His throat was dry. His ears still rang with the sound of the distorted voice from the call. A voice wrapped in memories he had spent years trying to drown beneath fame, tours, cameras, and late-night rehearsals. I'm fine, he lied. No, you're not. You knew that voice. You... Jiwoo hesitated, choosing her words carefully. You were scared. Jungkook exhaled through his nose, slow and controlled. A trick his therapist taught him for on-stage anxiety attacks. But this wasn't stage fright. This was something deeper, darker, personal. She's supposed to be gone, he murmured. She was gone. Jiwoo's eyes narrowed. She? You mean the caller? She called herself Yuna once. His voice cracked over the name like it hurt to say it. But I don't know who she is anymore. The green room backstage was dimly lit and soundproofed. A small sanctuary after each recording. But now it felt like a prison. Jungkook paced, his footsteps quiet on the industrial carpet. Jiwoo stood still, arms crossed, gaze following his every move. You're going to have to tell me everything, she said finally. Not for me, for the show, for you. Before she says more, he stopped walking. His back was to her. His reflection stared back at him from the long mirror on the wall, fractured slightly by a hairline crack in the glass. Like a metaphor he didn't want to acknowledge. You don't understand, he whispered. It wasn't just a kiss. Jiwoo's voice softened. Then tell me. Start from the beginning. He turned around slowly, his face unreadable, his jaw tight. And then, like a dam breaking, he spoke. Her name was I'm Yuna. Or at least that's what she told everyone. She transferred to our school in Daegu halfway through second year. Nobody knew where she came from. She didn't talk much. Always sketching. Always alone. I thought she was mysterious. But I didn't know. He trailed off, rubbing the back of his neck, eyes darting. We met by accident. After school. It was raining. I found her in the art room crying. She didn't see me at first. I should have left. Jiwoo leaned in. What happened? Jungkook chuckled bitterly. She asked me if I'd ever kissed someone. I told her no. She asked if I wanted to. I thought it was a joke. It wasn't, Jiwoo guessed. No, he said. It wasn't. The memory burned. That quiet art room. The smell of turpentine and rain-soaked wool. Her fingers cold as she touched his face. Her lips soft, trembling. The kiss was clumsy, tender. And then, she pulled away, looked him in the eye, and said something that haunted him to this day. One day you'll lie about this. Back in the green room, Jiwoo looked stunned. Why would she say that? Because she knew something, he said darkly. Something was wrong with her. Not in a bad way, just wrong. Like she could see things other people didn't. Or maybe she'd been hurt too much. Jiwoo hesitated. What happened after the kiss? We started meeting in secret, Jungkook admitted. She didn't want anyone to know. We never dated, not really. But she'd draw me. Everywhere. Sketchbooks full. And she'd talk about things. Memories that didn't make sense. People who didn't exist. I thought she was pretending. Then things started happening. Like what? Paintings sent to my house, he said. Pages ripped from her sketchbook left in my locker. One night, I saw her outside my window at 3 a.m. Just standing there, smiling. Jiwoo looked horrified. That's not romantic. That's terrifying. It was both, he said. I was 17. I thought it was intense love. I didn't realize it was obsession. He paused, jaw clenched. Then, a week before finals, she disappeared. Rumors started. That she'd been institutionalized. That her family moved her overseas. That she died. Jiwoo's voice dropped to a whisper. What's the truth? No one ever found out. Not even the police. But a year later I got a painting in the mail. A self-portrait. Her eyes gouged out with a knife. Silence fell heavy between them. Even the low hum of the fluorescent lights seemed to stop. Jiwoo sat down slowly, her voice trembling. And now she's back. She was watching this whole time, Jungkook said. Waiting for the right moment. Jiwoo frowned. Why now? He looked at her, dead serious. Because I lied. I told the world I'd never kissed anyone before debut. I said my first kiss was on a drama shoot. I said it didn't mean anything. But to her, it meant everything. Before Jiwoo could respond, a loud buzz echoed from her phone. She picked it up, eyes widening. Oh my God, she whispered. She posted something. What? Jungkook crossed the room in 2 strides. Jiwoo turned the screen. A Twitter account under the name @FirstKissTruth. A single post. A photo of the two of them, Jungkook and Yuna, sitting on the rooftop of their old school. He was holding her hand, smiling. Jungkook's blood ran cold. That photo was never taken. Jiwoo blinked. You're in it. I'm telling you it didn't happen. She tagged the podcast. She tagged you. And it's already at 2 million views. The door to the green room opened suddenly. Their producer, Miho, stood there pale as paper. She sent a package, he said. Jiwoo and Jungkook turned slowly. What kind of package? Jungkook asked. Miho didn't answer. He just held out a manila envelope. No address. Just a symbol scrawled in red. A pair of lips, stitched shut. Jungkook took it. His fingers trembled as he opened it and pulled out what lay inside. A USB drive. A single note, written in the exact same handwriting from the sketchbook pages. Play this on episode 3, or I will. His heart thundered. He'd thought the past was a locked room, buried and forgotten. But now the door was wide open, and Yuna was walking through it. Again, the studio was dark. Not dim dark, the kind of darkness that presses in around you, heavy and personal, like it knows your name. Jiwoo flicked the light switch 3 times, but nothing happened. The emergency bulbs had failed too. It was just her, Jungkook, and the hum of paranoia. I don't like this, Jiwoo said, her voice thinner than usual. Miho said the backup generator should have kicked in by now. It's her, Jungkook replied. He wasn't whispering, but it felt like he should have been. She's doing this. You think she cut the power to a broadcasting network in downtown Seoul? I think she wants us isolated, he said, holding up the USB drive. So that when we listen to this we don't have anywhere to run. Jiwoo exhaled, shaking her head. You sound paranoid. I am paranoid, he said sharply. That's what she does. She gets in your head. She infects your sense of reality. She made me fall in love with her. And I don't even know if she was ever real. He sat down in front of the studio monitor, illuminated only by the weak glow of his phone's flashlight. His hand hovered over the keyboard. The USB drive felt like it was pulsing in his palm, like it was alive. She said play it in episode 3. Jiwoo reminded him. This is episode 3. He inserted the drive. A single file popped up. JJK_confession.mp4. Jiwoo blinked. Your initials. I know. He clicked. The screen went black for 2 full seconds. Then static. Loud. Dissonant. White snow like an old television. Slowly the image formed. A grainy video. Shot from a handheld camcorder. Night vision mode. The view was shaky, like someone filming from behind a closet door. And then him, 17-year-old Jungkook, sitting on a bed, shirtless, bruises on his neck, his breathing ragged, his eyes unfocused. Jiwoo's jaw dropped. Oh my God, she whispered. The younger Jungkook turned to the camera suddenly. I know you're filming, he said. His voice was hoarse. I don't care anymore. The person holding the camera moved. A shadow passed in front of the lens. A girl's silhouette. Tell them, she whispered. Jungkook hesitated, then nodded slowly. I kissed her, he said. But that wasn't the first time. I've lied to everyone. I said it was a stupid teenage mistake. But it wasn't. The screen shook violently. She told me she had dreams about things before they happened. I didn't believe her. Until she described my audition. 6 months before I ever told anyone I was going to try out. He looked haunted. His voice dropped to a whisper. She said if I didn't kiss her that night, she'd vanish forever. That she wasn't supposed to exist beyond that moment. Like she was borrowing time. I thought it was a game. But she cried when I hesitated. He looked at the camera again. She said one day I'd be famous and I'd lie. I'd say it was fake. And when I did, she'd return. With proof. The screen flickered. Then, black. Jiwoo stepped back from the screen, one hand over her mouth. That's edited, she said. It has to be. That's not. That can't be real. I don't remember filming that, Jungkook muttered, staring at his younger self. I remember that night, but not the camera. I would never say something like that on film. You were 17, Jiwoo said. And scared. The screen came alive again. A new image. A hospital bed. A girl, face obscured by shadows. Her arms were tied down. Machines beeped softly. Nurses walked past in the background. And then a whisper. Do you think he still dreams about me? The voice was unmistakable. Yuna. Jungkook stumbled back from the monitor. His breath caught in his throat. I saw that room, he said, panic crawling into his voice. My mother worked at that hospital for a year. Pediatrics. But I never told anyone. Not even the label. She filmed herself in it? Jiwoo asked. No, Jungkook said slowly. I think someone else filmed her. I think she's trying to show us. She was kept there. Locked away. Another file loaded itself without prompt. The folder popped open, private, and inside were dozens of images. Jungkook's private messages. DMs. Drafted emails. Unsent voice memos. Even photos from his phone, never shared publicly. Screenshots of text conversations with his therapist. Notes to himself written in the middle of the night. This isn't possible, he whispered. These weren't backed up anywhere. These were on my encrypted cloud. Jiwoo backed away. She hacked you. Or someone did. You're compromised, Jungkook. We're all compromised. The studio door burst open. Miho ran in, panting. She just uploaded the full video online. The one of you confessing. What? Jiwoo asked. To where? Her own platform, Miho said. She built a site. And she crashed the server with traffic in 5 minutes. He held up his phone. The screen was filled with fan comments. Is this real? Why would Jungkook lie? He looks terrified in that video. Who is Yuna and why did they erase her? I don't know what's happening, but I can't look away. Miho looked at Jungkook. You have to respond. Now. I don't even know what's true anymore, Jungkook said. Jiwoo stepped forward. Then say that. Be honest. Say she's pulling your past out from under you, and you're trying to understand it just like everyone else. Miho nodded. Do a live broadcast. Damage control. Make it human. Vulnerable. Jungkook stared at them both. Then nodded. They entered the main studio. The power returned, as if on cue. The on-air sign glowed red again. Jiwoo held his gaze. Whatever happens next, you don't face it alone. Jungkook sat down, adjusted his mic, and took a deep breath. This is Jungkook, he said into the silence. And I think it's time I told you the truth. Across the city, in a dark room lit only by the flicker of old film reels, Yuna smiled and whispered into a mic of her own. Welcome to my story, she said. You've heard his side. Now it's my turn. And so the real broadcast began. You think I'm a ghost? The voice crackled through every speaker, every headset, every digital stream tuned in to what was now the most watched live broadcast in South Korea. No warning, no scheduled drop. Yuna's voice hijacked the airwaves exactly 4 minutes into Jungkook's live confession podcast. Jiwoo's hand flew to the mute button, but it didn't work. The system was overridden. Do you think you buried me well enough that no one would ever ask questions? Yuna continued, her tone syrupy, hypnotic, laced with acid. You kissed me. You told me things. And then you became famous and forgot I had a face. Jungkook's eyes went wide. His headphones trembled from the feedback in the channel. He stood up so fast the chair clattered backward. How is she? How is she doing this? Jiwoo demanded. This is our system. This closed loop. Internal. She's inside it, Jungkook whispered. She's inside everything. The producer was shouting from the booth. Nothing was responsive. Monitors glitched. Microphones buzzed. The audio feed was no longer theirs. And then, the screen behind Jungkook lit up. Footage. CCTV style. Labeled. Seoul Youth Psychiatric Ward. 2017. A girl strapped to a bed. Her wrists bruised from the restraints. Her face turned toward the wall. A nurse entered, whispered something in her ear, and she nodded. The girl looked up. It was Yuna. Only now. Sickly thin, her cheeks hollow, her eyes glassy and resigned. But unmistakable. And then the caption appeared across the feed. This is where he left me. No, Jungkook said. No, I didn't know. I didn't know you were there. Liar. Yuna's voice came through again. You stopped answering my letters. I never got any letters. His voice cracked live on air. You think I wouldn't have come for you? You think I could forget you that easily? Another video cue. A handwritten letter. Filled the screen. A childlike scrawl. Dear Jungkook. They say you're on TV now. I'm not allowed to watch it, but I heard you smile. I remember your smile. I hope I do. Please come get me. They won't tell me where my mother is. I don't know what year it is, but I remember the kiss. I remember the library. I remember you said I mattered. Did you mean it? Please tell me I still matter. Yuna. Jaiwa's face was frozen in horror. Turn it off, she muttered. Someone turn it off. But the room was paralyzed. Nothing responded. Jungkook sank back into his seat. His voice was hollow now. Why are you doing this to me? He whispered into the mic. If this is real, why now? Why like this? Yuna's voice softened. Because you didn't come back, she said. Because you told the world our kiss was nothing. And then you told them you'd never kissed anyone at all. You erased me. I was protecting you, Jungkook said, hands shaking. They wanted to know everything. The label, the fans. I couldn't tell them about you. You weren't just some girl I kissed in high school. You were. He trailed off, overwhelmed by grief and shame. You were real, he finished. And I didn't know how to keep you safe. The line went silent for a moment. Then, a new voice joined. Male. Older. Crooked with authority and bitterness. Well, took you long enough. Jaiwa's head jerked toward the speaker. Who the hell is that? The screen flashed again. A hospital office. A man with a white coat, aged around 50, standing behind a desk littered with patient files. One folder clearly marked, IMYUNA, Observation Category B. Red stamp, unreleased. Dr. Han Jisoo, Jungkook said slowly. Head of Psychiatric Staff, Seoul Youth Center. Fired after malpractice charges in 2018. Never convicted. The doctor sneered. Funny what money can erase. Huh. Jungkook? You knew her, Jungkook said. You kept her locked up. I saved her, Dr. Han said. From herself. From you. From the delusions you planted in her head. You're lying, Jaiwa snapped. No, he said with a cold smile. He is. Suddenly the video switched again. Yuna, recorded secretly, talking to a therapist. She told me he would come back, Yuna said, her voice trembling. The girl in the mirror. She said he'd remember me if I bled enough. The room froze. Jungkook's mouth opened, but no sound came out. What? He said finally. Yuna suffered from early-onset paranoid schizophrenia, Dr. Han said, leaning forward. Delusional fixation. Hallucinations. That letter she sent you? She wrote that same message to herself. Every week. Over and over again. Your name wasn't even in most of them. She just thought it was. Jungkook felt like the floor was falling out beneath him. No, he whispered. That's not possible. She knew things. She told me things before they happened. Delusions find patterns, the doctor said. Coincidences feel like fate to the sick. She built an entire world around a boy who kissed her once. Jaiwoo looked at Jungkook, eyes swimming with confusion. Then what's the truth? Was she a victim? Or was she dangerous? The room trembled with silence. Then a final file played. A video. Jungkook in the green room, taken from a hidden angle. Last week. He was talking to himself. No sound. Just his lips moving. Over and over. I kissed her. Killed her. I kissed her. I killed her. Jaiwoo backed away slowly. What is this? I never said that, Jungkook whispered. Your security feed did, Dr. Han said. You're not remembering things clearly anymore, are you? The final image appeared on the screen. A sketch. Drawn in charcoal. Yuna and Jungkook. Standing at the edge of a cliff. She's whispering in his ear. The caption. We both jumped. Only one of us landed. The broadcast cut to black. Jaiwoo stood paralyzed. Jungkook sat motionless, staring at the blank screen, breathing hard. He didn't know what was real anymore. And for the first time in his life, he was truly afraid of his own mind. "You're not going back in there." Jaiwoo stood in front of the studio door, both palms pressed flat against the wood, her face pale and trembling. Her voice was steady, but only just. Behind her, the corridor was flooded with camera crews, staff arguing in hushed tones, and managers on phones with legal teams. The entire floor had turned into a war room, trying to decide whether Jungkook should be allowed to continue his broadcast. But for Jungkook, there was no more should, only must. He looked at Jaiwoo, his eyes sunken and bloodshot from a night without sleep, his fingers raw from gripping his phone too tightly, and his breath barely steady enough to speak. "She's not finished," he said. "And neither am I." Jaiwoo's eyes narrowed. "She's manipulating you. That last video wasn't proof, it was poison. You're spiraling." "She's showing me something I forgot," he replied. "Or something I wasn't ready to remember." "You mean this sketch?" Jaiwoo snapped, pulling the crumpled charcoal drawing from her pocket. The one with the cliff, the whisper, the cryptic phrase. "This isn't a memory. This is performance art. This is her staging your guilt and broadcasting it to millions." Jungkook stepped closer, his voice low. "Then let me end the performance." Inside the studio, the air was cold. Not from any vent, but from something deeper, a sense of spectral presence that had taken up permanent residence in the walls. The scent of metal lingered, like old blood on wire. The lights were dimmed, and the broadcast screen sat black, waiting. He sat down at the mic. Jaiwoo followed, reluctant but loyal. "Are you sure you want to go live?" she asked. "I don't think I have a choice," he said. He looked straight into the camera. The red recording light glowed. The mic blinked on, and the live feed began. "This is Jungkook," he said. Again. His voice cracked. "I know most of you don't know what's real anymore. Neither do I. That's not a line. It's the truth. This, whatever it is, it's no longer about a kiss. It's about memory. It's about what we choose to forget, and what comes back for us when we bury it too deep." He paused, breathing. "I'm not going to fight her. I'm going to listen." He slid the headphones on. The feed clicked. Not with her voice. With his own voice, whispering, distorted by static, warped with emotion. "I never wanted to forget her," the voice said. "But forgetting her is the only way I survived." Jaiwoo flinched. "That wasn't the recording from before," she said. "That's new. That's live." A second voice joined. Hers. "Yuna. You told me you'd jump," she said. "But you let go." The screen blinked on. A recording. Not grainy this time. Not hidden. HD. Crisp. Raw. It was a dashcam video. A dark road. Headlights slicing through rain. Windshield wipers beating like a panicked heart. Inside the car, Jungkook. 17. Driving. Too fast. Breathing too hard. In the passenger seat, Yuna. Smiling. Crying. She looked at him, eyes wide with something unnameable. "I want to disappear," she said. "You don't mean that," younger Jungkook said. "You do," she replied. "You already made me invisible." The car hit something. The screen lurched. A flash of light. A scream. Then, silence. The screen froze on one frame. Yuna, hand against the window, mouth forming a single word. "Remember." The studio was silent. Jungkook removed his headphones, slowly. "I lied," he said, almost inaudibly. Jaiwoo didn't speak. Her hand hovered near the mute button but didn't move. "I told everyone I never saw her after second year. But I did. That night, we snuck out. She told me she wanted to end everything. I thought I could talk her down. Instead, I drove her to the cliffs outside town." He looked directly into the camera, trembling. "We argued. She screamed at me, said I used her, said I let the label scrub her out of my life because I was scared she didn't fit the image. And maybe she was right." He paused. His voice barely held. "She opened the door, climbed out. She walked to the edge. I followed. We both stood there." A tear slid down his cheek. "I was the one who turned away. Jiwoo gasped, covered her mouth. I told her I couldn't do it. Jungkook continued. That I had too much to lose. She laughed. Said she had nothing left. She said, we both jump. Only one of us lands. Then she leaned in close and whispered something. I never remembered what it was. Until last night. He touched the side of his temple. She whispered, I'll haunt your fame. The rain began just as Jungkook stepped out of the studio. It wasn't gentle, it came down in violent sheets, slashing across the pavement like something vengeful had followed him into the real world. Security scrambled with umbrellas, cameras clicked from behind tinted windows, and 100 reporters shouted questions like knives thrown from behind tape lines. He said nothing. He didn't flinch. Let them stare. Let them speculate. He was no longer hiding. Jiwoo followed close behind, soaked in seconds, but her focus never left his back. She could see the tension in his shoulders, the stiffness in his stride. He was walking like a man who'd accepted the death of something, not a person, but an identity. Jungkook, the polished star. Jungkook, the safe confession. Jungkook, the perfect silhouette. Gone. They reached the black SUV, slid in without a word, and the doors slammed shut. The city noise dulled instantly. It was just them now. No cameras. No feed. No filters. Just silence. Jiwoo broke it first. She forgave you, she said. That's more than most people get. Jungkook didn't answer. He looked out the window, jaw clenched, hands limp in his lap. Do you want to talk about it? She asked. He turned slowly. When he spoke, his voice was quiet, hoarse, and stripped of artifice. She forgave me publicly, he said. But she didn't look at me. Not once. Jiwoo hesitated. Do you need her to look at you? I don't know, he said. I think I needed her to scream. To hate me. To hit me. Something. Anything. Because guilt wants punishment? Because I don't deserve peace. The car turned a corner. Outside, Seoul pulsed with confusion. Screens everywhere replayed the final podcast. Hashtags climbed. Protest signs appeared outside the agency building. Half the world was divided, some ready to crucify him, others defending him with tearful tweets and conspiracy theories. I keep asking myself, Jungkook murmured, what if I hadn't let go? Jiwoo's eyes darted toward him. You didn't push her. No, he said. But I didn't hold on either. He closed his eyes. And the worst part is, I remember feeling relief when the ambulance took her. Like it was over. Like it was finally off me. Jiwoo opened her mouth to respond, but a shrill ring cut the moment short. Jungkook's phone. Unknown number. He stared at it. I know that ringtone, he said. He answered. The voice that replied was not Yuna's. It was male. Calm. Calculated. You remember me, don't you? Jungkook's blood turned to ice. Who is this? You visited me once, the voice said. When you thought she was dead. His mind raced. Faces. Files. Hospital wards. Basement wings. Then, you're the brother. The voice chuckled. There it is. Yuna never said she had family. She didn't, the man replied. I was a ward too. Different building. Same cage. Jiwoo leaned closer, trying to catch the voice, but the speaker was distorted. Why are you calling me? Jungkook asked. To finish what she started. What does that mean? The line went dead. Jungkook stared at the screen. I thought she was alone, he said. Jiwoo shook her head. There's always someone watching. Later that night, Jungkook sat in his apartment, bare walls glaring under fluorescent light. He had stripped the place of decorations weeks ago, unable to look at photos, unable to trust what they meant. On the table, the envelope. It had arrived hours after Yuna's broadcast. No return address. Just a blood-red seal, wax still soft. He hadn't dared open it until now. Inside, a photo. A new one. Yuna sitting at a long table in a dark room. In front of her files. Thick ones. His name marked across several. Dates, signatures, symbols. And behind her, in the shadows, stood someone else. Male. Wearing a lanyard. Holding a phone. On the back of the photo, written in black ink. You weren't the only one they erased. Jungkook dropped the photo. Jiwoo, he said, dialing her instantly. I need you at the agency archives. Now. The agency building was locked. Technically. But Jiwoo had connections. They entered through the back, avoiding surveillance, cutting through an old practice studio filled with unused props and mirrors. The archives were in the basement. The air was dense with old paper and mold, and the walls were lined with cabinets labeled only by numbers, not names. Why would Yuna have access to these? Jiwoo asked, unlocking drawer 19. She said I wasn't the only one, Jungkook replied. She meant there were others. Other what? Other stories. Other erasures. The drawer slid open. Dozens of folders. Redacted documents. Unreleased footage. Medical slips. All tied to trainees. I don't recognize these names, Jiwa said. She did, Jungkook said. And that means. He pulled a folder. Hong Minseo. Who's that? Jiwoo asked. I don't know, Jungkook said. But look, he was scouted the same year as me. Same audition round. But he never debuted. No. And no one ever talks about him. He flipped the pages. Arrest record. Psychiatric transfer. Suicide attempt. Case closed. And on the final page, a handwritten note. I saw what they did to her. She screamed your name. Over and over. You were the only real thing she ever had. Jiwa gasped. They covered this up. Jungkook looked at her, something cracking in his voice. It wasn't just guilt. It was design. They wiped it all away. Suddenly, the lights flickered. Jiwa froze. That's not a power surge. From down the hall, a creak. A shadow moved across the mirror. Jungkook turned. Standing there, backlit by the emergency exit sign, was a man. Mid-30s. Face pale. Eyes sharp. Hello, Jungkook, he said. Jungkook's breath hitched. You're her brother. No, the man replied. I'm what made her forget. And he lunged. The folder fell. Papers scattered. Jiwa screamed. Everything dissolved into chaos. And in the middle of it, one truth rose, impossible to ignore. This was never about a kiss. It was about control. Memory. Identity. And Jungkook had just become the last thread holding the entire truth together. And someone many someones would kill to cut it. The man's shoulder slammed into Jungkook's chest, sending him backward into a row of file cabinets. Steel screamed as they slid, tipped, and crashed to the concrete floor. Jiwa ducked, yanking Jungkook by the arm as the man, taller, stronger, eyes burning with something cold and calculated, advanced again without hesitation. Run, Jiwa hissed. Run, now. No, Jungkook gasped, staggering to his feet, blood from his temple slicking his eyebrow. He knows something. I am something, the man growled, stepping into the flickering light. And you're about to learn why she was never supposed to live. Jiwa threw a fire extinguisher at him. He swatted it aside, but the momentary distraction gave them enough time to escape the archives and bolt into the stairwell. They didn't stop running until they were 5 floors up, breathless and dizzy, slamming into a small recording suite that had been repurposed as storage. Jiwa locked the door, pushed a console desk in front of it and turned to Jungkook, eyes wild. Who the hell is he? I don't know, Jungkook said, panting. But he's not just Yuna's brother. He's something else. I looked into her family years ago. There was no sibling listed. Jiwa dropped onto a chair, wiping sweat from her face with her sleeve. Then why is he doing this? Why now? Jungkook sank to the floor, pulled a cracked file folder from his jacket and flipped it open. The contents were wet from the rain earlier, some pages torn, but one thing remained clear. A still image from surveillance footage. A child strapped to a gurney. Not Yuna. A boy. His wrists bleeding from rope burns. Behind him, Dr. Han. Younger. Clean-cut. Smiling. Look at this, Jungkook said, showing Jiwa the timestamp. This is dated a full year before I even met Yuna. Jiwa squinted at the page. Wait, the hospital name. It's the same place. Same ward. Different room. Jiwa slowly looked up at him. You think he was a patient? I think, Jungkook said quietly, he never left. Silence hung between them. And then the door rattled. Once. Twice. Jungkook raised his finger to his lips. A voice muffled through the crack. You're chasing shadows, Jungkook? But it's your own reflection that's going to kill you. Then silence again. They didn't speak for a full 5 minutes. Not until they were sure the man had gone. When they emerged, the agency building had been evacuated, emergency lockdown initiated. Flashing red lights washed the hallways in alarm. No sign of the man. No security personnel. Only static on the overhead speakers. They walked through the quiet carnage until Jiwoo's phone buzzed. A video link. No subject. No sender. Jungkook grabbed it and pressed play. It was Yuna. She sat in what looked like a waiting room. Fluorescent lights above. A clock ticking loudly. She looked calm. Composed. But something about her eyes, wide, sharp, deliberate, betrayed the intensity buried beneath the surface. You're getting close, Jungkook, she said softly. And you'll wish you hadn't. He leaned in closer. You think this is about guilt? About trauma? It's not. It never was. You kissed me, yes? And I kissed you. But that kiss was a trigger. Jiwa's breath hitched. What does she mean? I remember now, Yuna continued. The night we met, they were watching. They let me go to school to see how I'd function under unmonitored conditions. I wasn't just a patient. I was a subject. Jungkook felt like the floor had disappeared under him. The program was called Orchid Protocol, Yuna said, the words coming like bullets. It wasn't sanctioned. It wasn't funded publicly. It was private. Elite. Psychological warfare training. They wanted to break children with early trauma to see what could be rebuilt. Jiwa went pale. You're telling me she was part of an experiment? Jungkook's voice was faint. They used her. Like a lab rat. Yuna's eyes in the video narrowed. They knew I was gifted. I remembered things from when I was an infant. I could recite phrases after hearing them once. I had perfect audio recall. They called me the listener. You were the only thing that wasn't scripted, Jungkook. You were the first uncontrollable variable. She smiled bitterly. And that's why they erased me. Because you loved me. Because that wasn't part of their design. The video ended. Silence. Jiwa couldn't speak. Couldn't move. Jungkook just stared at the dark screen, hands clenched, his body cold despite the warmth in the room. He stood. We go public. Jiwa blinked. What? We release everything. The files. The footage. The hospital records. The confession. Everything. Jiwa grabbed his wrist. They'll kill you. I'd rather die being hated for the truth than live in this performance, he said. She looked into his eyes and saw it clarity. Pain sharpened into purpose. That night, they broke into the network's editing bay. Jiwa hacked the upload system while Jungkook organized the sequence, her confession, the program, the documents, the footage of him and Yuna, the voice memos. And at midnight, they went live. All of it. No filters. The truth spilled like blood across the internet. The reaction was immediate. News anchors wept on live television. Fans rioted. Former trainees came forward with broken memories, eerily similar facility names, staff faces, unexplained blackouts in their career timelines. And then, days later, a trial began. The trial of Dr. Han. He didn't speak. He didn't plead. He just smiled. And when asked if Orchid Protocol existed, he said, "You've only seen one petal." Outside the courtroom, Jungkook stood, sunglasses on, hoodie up, hands shaking as reporters shouted his name. Jiwa was beside him. What do you feel? She asked. He didn't answer right away. Then, everything. She smiled. You remember now? Yes, he whispered. And I don't want to forget again. Then from behind them, a voice. You never will. They turned. Yuna. Alive. Free. Eyes clear. She stepped forward. And for the first time in years, he didn't see a ghost. He saw a survivor. She reached out, placed a hand on his chest. You kept your promise, she said. You told the truth. And then she walked past him into the crowd, disappearing into light. He didn't follow. Because this time she wasn't the one who needed saving. This time it was the world. The room was quiet except for the sound of the old reel spinning. Jiwa sat against the wall, arms crossed tightly around her knees, eyes fixed on the screen. Jungkook stood a few feet away, shoulders hunched, sweat shining across his brow under the flickering projector light. They were watching something not meant to be seen. A final reel had been mailed to Jiwa's private studio, not to the agency, not to a legal team or a press contact. No return address. Just a single label carved into the edge of the film case with something sharp. Orchid_00. There was no sound at first. Just black and white footage. 6 children. A dim, padded room. One girl in the center, small, wild-haired, eyes darting around. The rest lined the wall like mannequins. Cameras in each corner. A clipboard visible in frame. Jungkook leaned in. His voice was dry, almost cracking. That's her. Yuna. Jiwa whispered. He nodded. Suddenly, the video jumped. The girl was no longer in the middle. She was at the glass, fingers smeared with what looked like crayon or paint. Writing words backward on the glass for someone outside the frame. The writing reversed itself through the glass. They put thoughts inside. Jiwa whispered this was the original testing phase. She must have been, what, 8? 7, Jungkook said. I remember. I remember something like this. I dreamt it years ago. But it didn't feel like a dream. It felt planted. The image on the screen blurred. The video distorted and suddenly audio kicked in, a loud static at first, then overlapping voices. Subject displays high auditory retention. Risk of emotional attachment interfering with trigger conditioning. Remove contact with the singer. Erase all shared memory files. Jiwa looked at him, stunned. They were monitoring your interaction with her. Even back then. Jungkook's face was blank, but his hands were fists. I thought I met her by chance. That day in the library. The rain. The kiss. The screen jumped again. Now it was a voice memo black screen. Dr. Han. She responds strongly to romantic triggers. Music amplifies retention. Her attachment to subject 09 JJK could be harnessed but also poses a danger. If her conditioning collapses, she may remember the core events, including Incident 3. Jaewa turned. What's Incident 3? But Jungkook had gone pale. He knew. He remembered. Me, he said. That's me. Subject 09. I was part of it. Before the training. Before debut. There was a summer I don't remember. I was told I had surgery. But that wasn't true. He turned slowly toward Jaewa. I was there. With her. Jaewa couldn't breathe. You're saying they took you too? He nodded, almost too afraid of what that meant. But they let me go. Reconditioned. Scripted my mind around the trauma. Planted a version of events that kept me docile. Jaewa stood up fast, grabbing the table edge for balance. You were a kid, Jungkook. They did this to both of you. No, he said. They made her the experiment. I was the control. The proof their erasure system worked. The projector burned out, the real sputtering into silence. Jaewa swallowed. So now what? You've gone public. You've exposed it. The world knows. Not enough, he said. We gave them fragments. We didn't give them what matters. What's that? The why. She turned to him, wary. Why what? Why they wanted us to forget. Why they needed us to believe we were broken. Jaewa's eyes narrowed. You think there's something bigger? There always is. He walked to the whiteboard at the far end of the room. Covered in photos, notes, timelines. Red yarn lines between names. At the center, the orchid protocol. At the edge, circled in thick black marker, an address. Jaewa stepped forward, scanning it. This isn't a person. This is a compound, Jungkook said. Rural Giala. Off the grid. She mentioned it once in a dream. You think it's still active? I think we're not the first. I think there are others. And that place holds what's left of their memory before they were turned into ghosts. Jaewa hesitated. We go in, there's no guarantee we come out. Jungkook's eyes were steel. I'd rather die remembering than live forgetting again. The compound was buried in trees. No signposts. No signal. As they drove deeper, the air thickened with silence. Not the peaceful kind. The haunted kind. The kind that pressed against the glass of the car like it was trying to listen. They parked beneath an old oak tree. Jaewa slipped her phone into a lead-lined case. Recording. Always, she said. Body cam. Audio. Satellite backup to a dead-drop server. They passed a rusted gate, the word orchid barely visible beneath layers of moss. The compound beyond was vast and low, flat buildings with shuttered windows and overgrown roofs. But there was power. A faint light flickered in one of the far buildings. They entered slowly. Inside, clean halls. Bright white walls. Too bright. Monitors hummed. Lights buzzed. The silence was louder than anything else. Then a voice. Welcome back, Subject 09. A woman stood at the end of the corridor. Early 50s. Crisp white coat. Red folder in hand. And behind her, doors opening silently. You remember me? She asked. Jungkook didn't answer. You should. I designed your neural replacement algorithm. Jaewa pulled out a small recorder. State your name and credentials. I'm not here to confess, the woman said. I'm here to offer closure. We already exposed you, Jungkook said. You exposed a seed, she replied. But this is the root. She motioned toward the open room. Inside, we've archived every recovered subject. Memory logs. Video interviews. The real stories. Jungkook stepped closer. Why are you showing me this? Because the board no longer exists, she said. The orchid program is dismantled. But the survivors are waking up. She handed him the red folder. Inside, photos of faces. Not just Yuna. Dozens. Hundreds. Children who were part of the program. Some now grown. Some missing. Some still institutionalized under different names. You were never supposed to love her, the woman said. But you did. And that broke everything. Jaewa whispered, what happens now? The woman smiled. You tell the whole story. That night, back in Seoul, Jungkook released a new podcast. Not about music. Not about fame. But about memory. Each episode was a survivor's story. Each voice was someone once erased. Yuna joined him in the final segment. Quiet. Strong. Unshaken. I remember everything now, she said. And I'm not ashamed. Jungkook looked at her. Do you forgive me? She didn't answer. She placed her hand over his. And the world listened. Not to gossip. Not to scandal. But to truth. Painful. Messy. Human. Unforgettable. They called it the broadcast that broke the nation. Within 24 hours of Jungkook's podcast going live, there were more than 70 million downloads. Comments poured in faster than any mod team could contain. Hashtags trended worldwide. Words like survivor, erasure, orchid truth, and unilives dominated every screen. But beneath the fervor, beneath the crying reaction videos, the divided fan wars, the university think pieces, the calls for government accountability, there was one truth no one knew how to swallow. This wasn't over. Not even close. Jaiwa knew it when she saw the flash drive left on her apartment windowsill. It was thin, wrapped in twine. No label. Just a single card attached with an ancient hospital inventory tag. This is the piece they never wanted you to see. She didn't call Jungkook immediately. She sat there for 23 minutes, staring at the thing like it might explode, because some part of her believed it could. Metaphorically, at the very least. When she finally did call, her voice was flat. Not numb, worse. Controlled. Like someone who knew too much to allow themselves to feel anything yet. I need you to come. Alone. Jungkook arrived 10 minutes later, still wearing his black hoodie and mask, but it no longer mattered. Half the country had seen his face sobbing on live streams. The other half had seen the footage of him holding Yuna's hand in the court parking lot. All that remained of his anonymity was this, moments like this, shrouded in shadow, hidden from the eye of public wrath and worship. Jaiwa said nothing as she handed him the drive. He turned it in his fingers. It was old. Metal casing. Not modern. Government issue. Possibly military. She played it on an air-gapped laptop. No connection. No risk. The video began with a long hallway. Surveillance footage again, but this time clearer. Newer. The timestamp read 6 months before Jungkook's original debut. Dr. Han walked briskly down the corridor, flanked by 2 guards. He stopped at a thick security door labeled subject F-word, entered a code, and disappeared inside. The footage cut. Now a room. Bright. Surgical. A child sat strapped to a chair. Not Yuna. A boy. Maybe 10 years old. A clipboard identified him as subject 19B. His voice shook. I can hear the song again. Dr. Han, off-screen, what song, Jane? The one she sang in my head. Jaiwa hit pause. Did he say Jane? Jungkook's eyes snapped to the screen. That was a name in one of the orchid lists. Jaiwa reached for her notes, flipping pages fast, breath-quickening. Yes, Jane Woo. Reported missing in 2012. Son of a former government defense strategist. She scrolled. Found 5 years later. Institutionalized. Declared catatonic. Died in sleep. Convenient, Jungkook muttered. Jaiwa hit play. The child continued. She told me the song wasn't hers. She said someone made her memorize it. That it wasn't in a language anyone knows. Dr. Han, quiet now, described the melody. The boy shook his head. I can't. It's like, every time I try, it feels like my brain is splitting. The video froze. Glitched. Then, the screen flashed to black. A final message appeared, typed in block text. There are more than 2 survivors. Jungkook exhaled slowly. Jaiwa whispered, they're reaching out. And she was right. Within days, a pattern emerged. Teenagers, now young adults, stepping forward in secret emails, anonymous voice messages, encrypted packages. Some were broken. Some lucid. All had something in common. Memories that didn't fit inside any logical narrative. Fragments of places that didn't exist on maps. Scripts etched into the backs of their minds. Snatches of songs they couldn't unhear, whispers of Yuna's name, or worse, his. One message chilled Jungkook to the core. You told me to forget. But I still remember. Jaiwa tracked that recording to an IP block in Busan. Untraceable. The voice belonged to a woman. Mid-20s. She sounded calm. But her breath hitched between words like someone being hunted. Jungkook sat for hours playing the voice again and again. He didn't remember her. But the sound of her not forgetting felt heavier than any admission of guilt. Late one night, Jaiwa found him sitting on the balcony watching the city breathe beneath him. Do you think, he asked, that any of them knew what they were doing? The doctors, she replied. The handlers. The guards. The executives. The ones who scrubbed the files. The ones who saw our faces and decided we weren't people anymore. Jaiwa sat beside him. I think some of them thought they were protecting something bigger. I think others didn't care. But I know a few of them enjoyed it. He closed his eyes. I used to think I was broken, he said. But what if I was built wrong on purpose? Jaiwa put her hand over his. You weren't broken, Jungkook. You were stolen. The next morning, he opened his inbox to a single email. No sender. No subject. Just one line of text. Come alone. You owe her that. Attached, GPS coordinates. A mountain region outside Pyeongchang. No roads. No marked trails. He didn't tell Jiwoo until he was already gone. When she called and heard the wind in the background, she screamed into the receiver, "You said you wouldn't do this again. You said we'd stay in the light." "I can't ask you to follow me where I'm going," he said. "But I have to know. For real. Who I was before they taught me how to lie." And then the line cut. The trek took hours. By dusk, he reached a clearing. There, in the center, stood a house. Not a compound. Not a lab. A real house. Wood panels, crooked porch, smoke curling from the chimney. A woman stood at the doorway. Yuna. Older. Different. But her. He didn't speak. She did. They built us with lies. But they never took the truth out of our blood. Inside, photos lined the walls. Sketches. Handwritten notes. Patient IDs. Maps. Music sheets. And a single framed quote. They made us forget. But forgetting is not the same as healing. Jungkook stood still. Then finally broke the silence. "Tell me who I am." Yuna smiled sadly. "You're the boy who kissed me and said he wouldn't run." And in the flicker of firelight, the scream of memory began to fade. Not erased. But finally understood. Jungkook hadn't spoken for nearly 10 minutes. The fire crackled between them, weak flames flickering over old newspapers stuffed beneath dry logs. Yuna sat across from him, legs folded neatly, a chipped mug of herbal tea steaming in her hands. She watched him quietly, the way someone watches a wounded animal, patient, careful, unsure when it might run again. The silence wasn't tension anymore. It was memory trying to shape itself into words. When he finally spoke, his voice was low, roughened by wind and the weight of everything he now carried. "I remember the room. The music box. The phrase you kept whispering." Yuna nodded slowly. "They planted it. Every time I got close to telling the truth, that melody played. Pavlov for the soul. I thought it was a lullaby," he said. "Something you used to calm yourself." "It was something they used to erase me, Jungkook." He closed his eyes. Yuna didn't reach for him. She'd learned long ago that grief demands space. But she spoke softly, her voice steady. "They called it a mnemonic disruptor. That song, those sounds. They could reset weeks of memory in under a minute. Sometimes I forgot who I was. Sometimes I forgot what they did. And once I forgot you." Jungkook's throat tightened. "How long?" "For months." He looked at her now. Really looked. She was still beautiful, but not in the ethereal, tragic way the media had painted her after her reappearance. She was human beautiful. Bruised knuckle beautiful. Eyes that had watched too much beautiful. She was someone who had remembered too much for too long. "I saw the files," he said. "Jiwoo and I, we found the testimonies. The subjects. The blueprints for the sound. They made me the core," she said. "Because I never broke. I bent, I screamed, I begged, but I didn't snap. That terrified them." He leaned forward. "Why did they keep it going after you disappeared?" "Because I wasn't the only one with memory-coded information," Yuna said. "They didn't just test trauma response or erasure. They stored data in us." He blinked. "What kind of data?" "Codes. Strategic information. Black site locations. Off-the-record operations." "You're saying they used you as living hard drives?" She smiled faintly. "And you were my encryption key." Jungkook fell back into the couch, heart pounding. "Why me?" "Because you didn't grow up in the system. They found you late. You were unpredictable. They thought your presence would cause instability in my data. But it did the opposite," he realized. "I helped you remember." Her smile faltered. "You made me feel. And emotions real, unscripted ones, they cut through the code like knives through silk." He looked down at his hands. "So what now? What do we do with that?" "I brought you here," Yuna said, setting the mug down, "because the last archive is still active. Not digital. Not on any server. It's in me." He stared at her. "You still carry it." "More than one," she said. "Everything they thought they erased, it's still inside. Layered. Fragmented. But it's here." She touched her temple. "You can't live like that," Jungkook said. "I don't want to." "What do you need?" She hesitated. "You." He froze. "Not like before," she added. "Not the boy in the rain. I need the part of you that saw through what they turned you into. The part that survived." He swallowed. "What do you want me to do?" She stood and crossed the room. From a dusty drawer beneath the fireplace, she pulled a small, sharp device. It looked like a metallic pen, cold and humming with quiet voltage. She placed it in his hand. "This will pull the layered memory matrix from my hippocampus. A final extraction. It's experimental. They used it once on a boy in Daegu. He flatlined. But the data survived." His hand trembled. "Yuna, no. This isn't a life," she whispered. "Not like this. I dream in codes. I flinch when I hear wind chimes. I wake up wondering if my name is mine. You could die. I've been dying for years. He stood, voice breaking. Let me carry it. She touched his cheek. You already carry too much. He closed his eyes. Held her hand there. Promise me one thing, he whispered. Anything. If you make it, tell them everything. Not just the science. Not just the abuse. Tell them about the library. The kiss. The art room. Her voice cracked. Why? Because if they made you a symbol, they don't get to take the girl I loved too. She smiled, tears in her eyes. I promise. Jungkook turned to the small wooden table, placed the pen down, and read the instructions carefully. His hands didn't shake anymore. He wasn't 17. He wasn't confused. He was ready. Yoona sat in the old chair. Wires were connected. The machine beeped, calibrated. And then, the light dimmed. The extraction began. She screamed once. Just once. A guttural cry that echoed like it was being torn from inside her bones. And then silence. Her body went still. Jungkook's heart stopped. He rushed to her, checked her pulse. Faint. Alive. The machine blinked rapidly. A light turned green. Memory fully transferred. Inside the device, everything. All of Orchid Protocol. Names. Dates. Systems. The music. The phrase. The blueprint for what was done and how to dismantle it. He backed away slowly. Yoona blinked, barely conscious. She looked at him. And for the first time in years, her voice held nothing but peace. I can't hear the song anymore. He wept. 2 weeks later, the world received the data dump. It was brutal. It was massive. It was undeniable. The global fallout was immediate. Governments panicked. Agencies collapsed. Investigations erupted in 23 countries. The Orchid name became synonymous with one of the worst human rights atrocities in history. But more than that, survivors came forward. From music academies. From psychiatric centers. From war zones. From prep schools. They remembered. Because someone showed them how. Months passed. Yoona disappeared from the public eye. She painted again. Silently. Vividly. Jungkook walked away from the stage. No press release. No ceremony. Just silence. He taught music in a small coastal town. On rainy days, he'd sit by the window, write lyrics, and hum softly to himself. No longer haunted. No longer afraid of remembering. Because now, when the wind carried the old melody, it didn't hurt. It just reminded him that even the worst truths once faced can still make space for healing. And love. The last time Jungkook saw her was in the field of white cranes. He didn't expect to find her there. He had heard rumors, whispers of a woman in the north near the border who painted on silk and sent her work down the river folded like prayers. But he hadn't believed it until he saw her, standing barefoot in the reeds, brush in one hand, an old military jacket over her shoulders, and peace written into the corners of her face. Yoona. No cameras. No microphones. No watchful, waiting public. Only wind and cranes and silence. You found me, she said softly, as though they'd spoken yesterday, not nearly a year ago. I wasn't looking, Jungkook answered, walking slowly through the wet grass toward her. Not really. I just ended up here. She smiled faintly. I think that's the first time we've ever been honest from the very beginning. They stood without touching. The air smelled of earth and river water. He could hear nothing but the call of birds and the heartbeat in his ears. How have you been? He asked, though the question felt small. Real, she said. For the first time in my life. Not reconstructed. Not remembered. Just here. He watched her for a long moment, then finally asked what he carried with him since the moment he walked away from the microphones and the global fallout. Do you ever regret telling the truth? Yoona's breath caught slightly, but she didn't flinch. I regret that it took so long. That we were made into stories before we got to live. Do you ever miss who we were? He asked. I miss the lie sometimes, she admitted. Because it was simpler. But I don't miss being silent. I don't miss feeling erased. Jungkook nodded. I still dream of it. Not the room. Not the cliff. Just the feeling. That I lost something I didn't know how to hold. She walked forward slowly until they stood face to face. You didn't lose me, she said. You remembered me. Even when they told you not to. He looked at her, really looked, and saw everything in her eyes, the ghost, the girl, the weapon, the survivor. I have a question, she said. Anything. If they hadn't touched our memories, if we'd just been two kids in a library in the rain, would you still have kissed me? He didn't hesitate. I would have kissed you sooner. Her smile trembled. Then I would have let you stay. They didn't cry. There was no need. Everything that had once needed to be said had been. Everything else could live in the silence between them. It wasn't absence anymore. It was choice. A car waited down the hill, engine idling softly. Jungkook turned to go. He paused only once, looking over his shoulder. Will I see you again? Yuna looked toward the cranes in the distance. When the world forgets us, she said, maybe we can finally begin. And with that, she turned back to her silk canvas and painted red lines through white fabric, a broken music box surrounded by wildflowers. Jungkook walked away. Not toward the past. Not back into fame. But forward. Months later, the world had moved on. News cycles shifted. Another scandal. Another war. Another star rising. Orchid protocol faded into books, university courses, quiet whispers in government corridors. But one thing lingered. A song. It appeared anonymously on streaming platforms. No credits. No label. Just a simple piano melody, raw and hesitant. At the end, a voice spoke. We are more than what they tried to erase. We are the silence they failed to write over. We are the truth no algorithm can contain. The track ended with a heartbeat. And then nothing. But in that silence, something began. Not a memory. Not a performance. But a life. And for the first time, it was theirs.